In the last video, we focused primarily on the role of self-efficacy and how self-efficacy influences student motivation, effort, persistence, their choice of activities, etc. Now, one of the things that we've talked about before in a different context is we talked about the importance of goals, the importance of goal setting. But we talked about it from a teacher's perspective. We talked about it in the first weeks of school when we talked about the effective teacher. What are they able to do? And one of the things that we realized is that effective teachers tend to be self-regulated, highly self-regulated. What does that mean? That they're able to set objectives, able to set goals, and figure out what do I need to achieve them? What do I need to do to achieve these objectives, achieve these goals? As a teacher, we don't want our teachers to say, okay, you need to learn this stuff at the end of the chapter, read the chapter, answer the questions, get ready for the test on Friday. I'm thinking, thanks, I needed your help for that. Okay, that's not a very effective teacher, all right? What we're looking for our teachers is the teacher going to be able to break the material down into a series or a set of objectives, instructionally figure out a way that's going to best meet the needs of that objective instructionally, and help us achieve each objective, which will then eventually turn into our success come on a chapter test, a unit test, etc., or a performance if it's in music or if it's in physical education or whatever the context might be. So goal setting plays a instrumental part of social cognitive theory for not only the teachers, the models, but also for us as students. And as a teacher, I keep that in mind, right? I want my students to do what? To be what? I want them to learn the stuff I'm teaching. Yes, I get that. That's easy. We want them to learn the stuff. But the truth is, I want them to be able to learn stuff when I'm not there. I want them to be able to go home and learn stuff without me having to hold their hand for everything. I want students to become independent, self-regulated learners. Okay? Sometimes you'll hear the word. We'll talk about teachers wanting students to become critical thinkers. We want our students to be problem solvers. We want our students, well, those are all great, right? But the idea is, how do we facilitate or assist our students in becoming that critical thinker, that problem solver, to be that goal setter, that a self-regulated learner? Remember, self-regulated learning, ability to identify an objective, to identify a goal, and figure out how do they achieve that. A learned behavior. Goal setting, self-regulation, man, I know we'd love for it to be one of those things that are we're born with, that it's a genetic predisposition, but the truth is it's not. These skills are oftentimes a learned behavior. And I have in the PowerPoint, I have a series of steps that we follow as teachers when trying to facilitate or help our students become a self-regulated learner. Okay, one of those is first and foremost setting realistic goals. Doesn't sound like it's a big deal. It is a big deal. Students can set goals, no problem, at all ages. Kindergarten, first grade, middle school, junior high, high school. These kids can all set goals. The question is, do they set appropriate goals? They set realistic goals. Okay? Think about when you were in K through 12, or maybe even in college right now. You ever found yourself 3 days to go, got a 300-page book to read? You still got to write a report. You got 3 days. I'm here to tell you that something's gone awry along the way, because I bet you money you didn't get that book 3 days and have to read it. Probably got it a lot sooner. You probably even said you were going to do something. Did you stick to it? Did you follow the plan? The question is, did you set a realistic goal about how you are going to achieve that goal? And a lot of times what we find is students looking and say, I still got 3 days left. I'll read 150 pages tonight, 150 pages tomorrow, and then I'll write the report on the third day. It's like, oh my goodness. Okay, grandiose thinking. The truth is that as teachers, we want to be there for students to, as someone to bounce things off about, what do you think I can do? Is this a good topic? Can I research this? Can I get this done? We help our kids learn to set realistic goals. So that's where it starts first. We're there to act as a sounding board and to help our students try to figure out what's going to be a reasonable goal for young kids. Secondly, self-observation. Okay, self-observation. Students need to learn to become observant of their progress toward a goal. Okay, how am I doing? Am I working in a positive direction to achieve my goal? Think about that for a second. What are the things that we do in a classroom to help our students become more observant of their progress toward a goal? Teachers do any number of things. One of the things that teachers like to do when you get a little bit older, we might ask students to have a journal that reflects what they're doing, what they're learning, what they're understanding. Sometimes it can be almost used in a portfolio sense, taking pieces of work ended up demonstrating their success towards that eventual goal. Sometimes we start when the kids are really young, we give them things like planners. Okay, what's the usefulness behind a planner? Well, we're trying to help our students become a little bit more organized and to think about how much time they have, when things are due, what night we have to do this. We're trying to help them. Think about this. This is a time management skill. How many of you, when you came to college, had strong time management skills? What you find is usually it's a few. It's not a lot of people. In high school, it was easy because your schedule was predetermined, was dictated for you. You go to school at this time, you finish at this time, you do this stuff, you have extracurriculars from here to then, you come home, you eat dinner, you do this, you do that. It's almost as if your schedule is laid out for you. You don't have, now you get to college and suddenly you've got different schedules, different expectations, all this stuff, and you have to manage that time. How easy was it for you to manage your time when you got to college? Okay. The idea is learning time management skill is oftentimes something that is taught. It is something that is modeled. It is something that is facilitated. We use planners as a means to help students to become better at managing their time. Maybe we have things up on the board alongside of our walls. We have charts and graphs and things like books that you've read. Targets. If you're in PE and physical education, maybe you're doing something on presidential fitness. You have a certain goal that you would want to be able to do this many pull-ups. You want to be able to meet this time in the 400. You kind of have your goal, and you take a look where you're at. You're going to work towards that goal, and you kind of chart it along the way so you can see your progression. So the idea is self-observation is giving students the tools to take a look at their progress toward a goal and then kind of keep track of that. By keeping track, it's allowing them to kind of reflect on their progress. Now, along the way, as they're looking at this, they have to start making the third point of self-regulation, third step, self-judgments. You have to give students opportunities to reflect on their progress and actually make judgments. When they have that 300-page book that they have to read and give a presentation on, and they have 3 weeks, many students can do this. 3 weeks, 300 pages, I read 100 pages a week. The last week, I'll read it in 1 day less, and I'll write the report the night before, whatever it is. They start off with this. They've got a path. They're going to go in that direction. Well, after week 1, they have to do some reflection and say, are you at 100 pages? And you come to find out that they're now at 250 pages. They're at 50 pages. Not 100, 50. So now you have 250 pages with 2 weeks to go. Do the math. Now they have 125 pages to read in the next 2 weeks. Okay? The idea is they have to recalibrate, they have to make judgments about their progress toward their goal. Okay? We do that through asking the students to map these things out. In that journaling, in that charting, in that stuff, they can make judgments. If any of you have ever watched the show The Biggest Loser, okay? Or any of those fitness shows on. One of the things that they'll ask them to do is to ask them to journal their progress toward their goal. At the end of the week, they get on the scale, they take a look at their progress, have they gained weight, lost weight, etc., right? Well, if they get up on the scale with all the exercise and all the things that they've been doing, the expectation is that they're going to drop weight, lose weight, right? If they get up on the scale and suddenly they're 5 pounds heavier, well, what happened? They always tell you the same thing. I don't know what happened. Man, I'm exercising, I'm doing all, it must be muscle. Yeah, right. What do we say? Let's take a look at the journal. Let me look at what you're doing each day. I'm going to find out that they're drinking a few Yoo-hoos each morning. I'm like, well, that's not what you should be doing. That's not helpful, right? We need those journals to help us make to make judgments about our progress. And so we take a look at those things and reflect on that. Okay. Along the way, making those judgments allows us to recalibrate, allows us to change the direction and whether or not we are working in a meaningful way towards our goal. The last part is this idea of a self-evaluation. I like to refer to it as self-reinforcing or self-punishing. Okay, you have to hold yourself accountable. When you have a goal, which is I need to get my introduction done for this essay before my friends come in town on Friday. If Friday comes along and you haven't worked on your introduction yet and your friends want to go out, one of the things that we're going to find is the students that really tend to do well are the ones that hold themselves accountable. Meaning, in this case, you didn't do your work, you don't get to go out. You stay in and you get your introduction done. If you get your introduction done early enough, go out with your friends. You become self-punishing in that case. If you meet your objective, if you meet your goal for Friday night to get such and such done, go out and have fun with your friends because you've met your goal. What we find and what research shows is this idea of delay of gratification is actually a very strong predictor of student success. Kids that are able to delay gratification at a young age in an academic sense, we find that those kids tend to do better than kids who have that struggle with that. Meaning the kids that come home and say, I got to knock out my homework first, and then I'm going to get on the Xbox, or I'm going to go watch TV, or I'm going to go on Instagram, or I'm going to do what? Those kids that get their work done, that develop that sense of routine, that they can delay gratification, those kids tend to do better than the kids that aren't. So it's a real strong tool in this self-regulation, the ability to evaluate your own progress. I'm sorry, to evaluate your own uh, uh, steps towards the way. Are you where you're supposed to be? If you aren't, you have to work to get there. Otherwise, you don't receive that reinforcement that you're looking for. Okay. The idea is, as a teacher, is we're instrumental in helping students and modeling how students can be better at goal setting, how students are going to be more self-regulated as learners. When we teach those tools at a young age, those students are able to incorporate them into their experience. The last thing is that Bandura talks about, and he has this idea of kind of a triangle, which is that our students' behavior, the three prongs of the triangle, behavior, okay, the environment, right, and then you think about the students' ability to meet these goals is the person, okay, is that a behavior, environment, person, is that our behavior is influenced by the environment. Um, each one influences the other. The personal dispositions, the personal characteristics that someone has influences their behavior, influences the environment. Okay? So when you're working in a classroom situation, we recognize that who we are as a student, our own dispositions, our own characteristics and stuff like that, are going to influence the environment that we're in, which will then influence the behavior of our group or us individually. And so the idea is that none of these things are working independently of each other. As a teacher, I recognize that from a social cognitive perspective, that all of these things are are influencing one another. So as a teacher, I'm looking to when we pull it all together in social cognitive theory, I recognize that the types that my students are always watching, the behaviors that I reinforce are being learned by other students. If I'm reinforcing one student, the other kids are watching and learning. If I'm not punishing kids when they deserve a punishment, the other kids are watching. And I recognize that I am a model. How do I become an effective model? Right? I have to think about ensuring that I have their attention. I have to help them retain the information. Got to make sure they're able to reproduce that skill or that task. And I got to give them a motivation, and that motivation is influenced often by their self-efficacy. And we as teachers need to provide students an opportunity for success to develop a sense of I can versus a student sense of I can't. Okay?